Welcome everybody to our Coaching from the Soul. We are live again today. Took us a bit of a while today to get there. Excited to be here. We're a smaller group today. We thought that we would try something just a little bit different. We're going to do some very short kind of 5-minute explorations between each of us, just in terms of a bit of speed coaching on something we'd like to see more about or are thinking about, and also then just have a little bit of reflection afterwards. So I hope you find each of the sessions interesting, and as always we'll put these into kind of smaller videos after the event. And if anybody wants to join us for any future sessions and take part in the activity, we'd love to have you. If you have a look on our Coaching from the Soul channel, there are some email addresses at the top of the page for Jen and I think at the moment. If you email either of us, then we'll let you know when the next session's coming up and we can schedule you in. So without further ado, I guess Jen or Noki, I can probably think of a question that I was mulling over earlier today. So can I start being the kind of test, and one of you want to ask me some questions, and we're going to just do this for 5 minutes.
Go for it.
Okay. So I was reflecting earlier today that thinking can often get in the way, and that reflecting is potentially a little bit different to thinking. So I was kind of thinking, well, when am I in flow and kind of getting deeper about something, and when am I thinking round and round habitually and not making any progress? And so I was having a chat with Sandy. So if you're watching, Sandy, thanks for giving me that tip. But we didn't quite get to the end of that conversation. So yeah, that seems like an interesting one to spend 5 minutes exploring.
Would you like one, or Jen or myself?
Oh, I get to choose. I'll go with Jen as she started speaking there, and then yeah, thanks.
Cool. So very briefly, where did you get to with that pondering about the difference there?
I think where I got to is that sometimes it's helpful to think intentionally and have a bit of space to wonder about something, and you get further with it. And I would almost categorize that as being in flow. Whereas other times there's just background noise and it's the same topic going round and round, and yeah, probably easy to get stuck in that. And I suppose the question could almost be, how might I better recognize one versus the other? Because that seems like an interesting thing to see.
Very cool. I was just about to ask you how you knew the difference between the two.
Well, one definitely came up with new information. The other was the same old story. But I definitely saw a lot of stuff on repeat. So yeah, there was a slight difference there, but I don't know in the time whether I was just stuck in it. I wonder how much time I wasted being stuck in that.
And you mentioned time there. Does that seem an important element to it?
Well, I guess I have some things that I'd like to make progress on that seem to be habitual thinking. So time was important in that I was trying to move forwards more quickly.
Because I was just wondering there about how much of the expectations about how fast something should take, whether there was some thinking of that around that. muddying the waters, so to speak. Or whether that's just me that does that.
Yeah, that's a good point, I think. I suspect there is some noise that's playing out. I know Noki's before has talked about these different records. I liked that illustration that might be playing in our head. I suspect that there is a record going, oh, we're on this topic, we've still not solved it yet. And I wonder, thinking out loud, actually, when I was more intentional, thought, oh, I'm going to go and have a look at something new here. Set myself a timer and thought, I'm going to write lots of ideas down. But because I was intentional, yeah, that background track perhaps wasn't playing. So yeah, I like that question.
It's one of the ways I can trip myself up with expectations about how quickly I should be coming up with answers with, which just gets my head even busier. And there's a feel to that when I do it. I don't always spot the feeling quite as quickly as I'd like, which is ironic considering I'm talking about thinking around how quick things should take. But yeah, for me, it's noticing the feelings about what it's pointing towards.
Yeah, I think that's a good reminder the two things do feel different. Like one feels a bit more stressful, the other one feels more curious. And we've probably talked on these calls before about how when we wonder or about curious about something, how usually more answers come then.
So what do you make of that?
Well, I think we were saying just before we came live about how it's interesting to see sometimes how we get in our own way and how we get out of our own way. And yeah, what's interesting, I think, from this little segment is there's a different feel to each of those. Like, wouldn't it be wonderful to think, oh, this doesn't feel good. Maybe I'm getting in my own way.
Yeah, and I think it can be that simple if we let it be.
Yeah.
The end of our 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen.
Very good.
Reflection time.
So Noki, you were the observer on that one. What did you get from that?
So I observed that I was preoccupied with my own thoughts for the first minute, and I couldn't quite hear the question. I wasn't sure if there was actually a question there. What I heard was Graham saying how much of his thinking was getting in the way versus the thinking. And what was apparent was there was like Jen had this kind of gentle approach to kind of inquiry of wondering where Graham was kind of self-discovering his own, how he's getting in the way of his own thinking.
And I'm sure I'd probably have to watch it back to think what the thing was, but it's interesting when I think you're being coached or asked questions, how it's sometimes hard to remember what the thing was, but there was something in there where I thought, actually, that's like a slightly new take on what I brought. So, yeah. I don't know if Jen, you noticed as you were asking me, but I was probably deep in thought. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting that as I was literally about to ask you, I can't remember what the question was. How do you know the difference between the two? You naturally progressed with that thought through there as well.
Yes.
So that was quite interesting to notice that was happened and how natural that can seem that we both get on the same wavelength there.
Yes. Yeah, you were about to ask me the same thing I just thought. Yeah. And there's something about just being in connection with another person, I think, that brings out that, yeah, the wondering space. I like that. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Great. Can we say that we can move on to the next contestant on
Yes.
the floor? There's a new person who's joined us, Dennis. And so Dennis, what we're working on at this moment is like we're doing like these very short 5-minute coaching sessions. And the person who wishes to be a client gets to choose whoever they want to be coached by. So if you have a question or issue or something, you have 5 minutes to choose one of us or not. You can just listen in.
And whilst Dennis chooses, I don't know if he's in a place where he can listen to participate or not this week. But Noki, have you got a question that you wanted to ask?
Sure, let me um, I don't have a question right off the bat, but let me sure, why don't we do this? You ready? You ready there, Graham? 5-minute
Yes.
the nature of thought. What is the nature of thought?
And is this something, Noki, you picking me to ask you the questions?
Oh, sorry. I gotta pick who either of you choose. Would either of you want to be the coach at this session? On that question?
Happy either way. Graham, do you want to go?
Yeah, go on, I'll ask it. I'll go. Yeah.
So, Graham,
So
what's
what
the
is
nature on this 3P stuff? I'm kind of perplexed by thought. They kind of, you know, I'm just thinking about ruminating on thoughts is that, in my own kind of experience with people, whether I'm kind of in a coaching session or just kind of ruminating, is where do thoughts come from? They're just kind of there. And why do some people have certain thoughts like let's say if I were a murderer, I would probably have murderous thoughts. I'd have this idea that I need to kill someone in order to get my way or whatever it is. Or if I were a baseball player, what would my thoughts be most of the time? Would be probably I want to throw that ball faster, more accurately, and further. But on an everyday basis, a gazillion thoughts are bombarding us. And but not all thoughts kind of land to this particular person here. It's like I can have a gazillion, it doesn't matter. I can have very um, broad range of thoughts, but not every thought, like only certain thoughts seem to land, or I would seem to cling on. So it's easy for us to say, stop thinking that thought, stop. But what if we just didn't have any thoughts? What would happen then? So what is the nature of thoughts? This is a philosophical question in some regard, but it's so fundamental to 3Ps. So
It was interesting because when you first asked the question, my first thought was, well, why is that important? And then as you went through that, I kind of settled back on the same. Like I wonder if there's something about the ones that we settle on because there's something we see or choose to see in them. Like, what's your sense of the ones that stop versus the ones that pass by? Because certainly for me, the nature of thought is, I guess, a little bit like cloud. Sometimes it stops above us, and other times it passes on by and we don't even notice. Like, yeah, what comes up for you in that?
I totally agree with you on that part. I guess the question maybe is why one particular thought seems to, well, let's see, I have a thought right now. Why do we cling on to any particular thought, I guess, and why? And well, maybe the whole question of why becomes, do I really need to know? So it's just to notice it, Oh,
Hmm.
that's just a thought. I can move on. I don't, but, and I can choose. I like that thought, so I'll stay there. But I can also let go of it. Or, that thought sucks, so let's not be there. But what I've noticed is that maybe we're so conditioned to kind of cling on to negative thoughts versus letting them go and moving on to something more positive and fruitful. And the difficulty is, like all of us seem to have, or many of us have, not all of us, but say the vast majority of us, is that we seem to hold on to thoughts that are unhelpful. And like we keep going at them, don't let go. At least maybe that's just me. So
Hmm. Well, yeah, there was something in there that made me think that's how we survive, isn't it? Like that's how we're here as a human species still. Like there's some of that is programming, if that's the word, because otherwise we might not see danger when danger is there. But yeah, still leads me to wondering, yeah. I think as you were saying there, there's almost like there's a choice. And then what I heard in that was that there's then almost observing the choice. Like there's something doing the observing. Like, yeah. What's your sense of what's doing the observing?
cool. I think we're at the moment of reflection here. Jen or Dennis, if you want to reflect on what you heard, that would be cool.
Well, I actually want to respond, and without sounding flippant about what is the nature of thought. We'll see how this lands. I haven't done so well in the last couple of days with the landing of things. I start saying it, and then I go, yeah, "Oh, geez, that's not so good." But you got to test the waters, and it occurred to me as I was listening to you guys just asking the question, "What is the nature of thought?" Somewhere in the back of my humor mind said, "But what is the nature of sneezing?"
Mm.
It's, if you think about it, when we sneeze, we really don't hold on to, "Oh, I sneezed," unless there's been some kind of effect on the world around us. Or perhaps I've left some stain or residue on my shirt. When sometimes I sneeze and I go, "Wow, that was really good. That was a great sneeze. Oh, I feel so good. I'm clear. I'm clear now." Sometimes I sneeze and I go, "Oh my God, I don't want another one of those." No matter what it does. And so it kind of was playing in the back of my humor mind. I'll use that term, because I always make me laugh because that's how good I am with myself. And the nature of a sneeze isn't to hold on to the effects of it. The nature of the sneeze is to clear out and to let go. And sometimes you have to take a histamine to help it. And I think for us and for thought, calm is our best histamine. Calm allows us to clear out that extra residue and to kind of work through what has come out. The nature of thought is like the nature of a sneeze. It just does what it does, you know? what we do with it is, and how we hold on to it is really kind of on us. And it probably doesn't hurt to have a good hanky around every now and then too. So that's where I'm at. Probably not landing real well, but that's what I got for the day.
I like that, Dennis. Like, I'm sat in a car tonight, as we can see, not the best place for this call, but as you were saying that, I was reminded of a spark plug and how like the spark plug just kind of fires and keeps things going, and I'm thinking, like when we're in flow, we probably don't notice. Whereas actually, when it's not working very well or we're getting stuck on something, we do. And I wonder if it's like, I liked your kind of pointing there to actually, well, what if when we don't get stuck, we just kind of, we're moving, a bit like a spark plug would just be firing and we're moving along. Like, yeah, Jen or Noki, what did you take from that?
Yeah, I love that description, because as I was listening, I did get as you asked, Graham, why is this important? Because to me, we think it's just part of who we are. It's part of how we function, and it's beautifully set up and designed that when we notice that feeling that we were talking about earlier, whether it's a traditional good feeling that would suggest that we're using our thinking in a way that benefits us, or whether it's an unpleasant feeling just to give us a nudge to go, yeah, you don't want to go that route with your thinking. You can do that another way. And I love the way Dennis described it there, because it's such a unique way and so relevant. I think most of us will relate to that in some shape, form, or description.
That'll stick with you. Excuse me a moment.
I really enjoyed the richness of the three, versions of the nature of thought, or in fact, that what is it, does it really matter in the end? And the metaphor of the sneeze and Graham's metaphor of the spark plug. It's like, that's a great approach of kind of exploring what that question is kind of elicited. So, and I think that'll leave other people kind of like, oh, I didn't see it that way. But that's an interesting way of seeing it. And that's, all those, what you guys brought up is like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think of it that way, but they're all kind of valid. And I was like, oh, yeah. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoyed that. I think, yeah, I love metaphor always brings up something, doesn't it? Like it's a great way of seeing things a little bit more. Okay, so Dennis or Jen, anything either of you would like to ask us a question and for someone else to do another little 5-minute exploration? That one certainly kicked us off with some interesting follow-up.
Oh, sorry, Dennis, I think I muted you.
Now I got to learn to use this one. Sorry, I just said my apologies. I'm going to have to wait on my response. Nothing is occurring to me just yet.
Okay, I'll play then. So I'm just debating whether to go very practical and do something logistic based, or do something more in line with going that step above, looking at it from before our thinking gets involved. And I'm more inclined to that one tonight. So I'm going to say, if the question is, what would you do if you got out of your own way? Who is the you that you're getting out of the way of? and who's not coached yet?
I haven't coached yet, so.
No,
Is it
key
my
it
turn?
is then.
But maybe you don't want me. Maybe you want
No.
Graham or.
I'm happy with either of you. So
Okay, Graham, hit that button. I'm on shotgun, or maybe Jen's in shotgun. So,
Yeah, go
so
on.
what was the, can you rephrase that question, please? Or say the question, I just want to rehear it.
okay, so if a question is, you know, what would you do if you got out of your own way? Who is the you that you're getting out of the way of?
So if I heard that correctly, what would you do if you got out of your own way? And who would you be if you were out of your own way?
Yeah, that's a slightly different phrasing, but it works.
It works for you?
Hmm.
So what if at the end of 5 minutes, where would you like to be with that question?
I think just seeing something new. It's not like
Okay,
there's a final destination I have in mind.
so an insight.
Yeah.
Okay. So who are you now?
There's the me that involves all my thinking, the one that, you know, oh yeah, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a coach, I'm a etc. 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 And then there's the me below all that thinking.
Okay, so you recognize that there is a me that plays a number of roles. Does that sound correct?
Tell me more about what you mean by that, because that
Well,
didn't quite resonate.
So I'm just kind of fishing here. It sounds like there's Jen the coach, Jen the client, Jen perhaps a mother, perhaps Jen the spouse or girlfriend, Jen the friend, Jen the daughter, and on and on and on. Is that what you're saying? Is there's that Jen?
Yep, there's
Yeah. But you seem to know that there's this Jen that's all that, but none of that.
yeah.
Okay. You want to?
Say the difference for me is that the one that's not all those different roles is a lot quieter and still and centered and has a bigger feel to it, for want of a better description. And yet it's also not the one that historically has been the one to come out and play.
So right here,
Hmm.
there is a calmness to Jen when she describes that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, there's a calmness with that feel as well.
Does that Jen ever disappear, even if the other Jens are around?
The gut feel to that says no. And I'd also add, don't notice. It's like, see, we're talking about shotgun. It's like she takes more of a back seat, but she's always there. Like a trusted friend to give a nudge when needed.
Well, it seems to me that actually that Jen is actually right here, right now, describing that Jen. And that Jen is actually enjoying that moment right now. But behind is another Jen, which is the one that doesn't believe that it's possible that that Jen's here. And that's the role play Jen. Does that seem accurate?
Certainly in the past, that would have been true. I think now there's a lot more trust and belief, in the sense of there's a lot less thinking about whether that me exists, that's in all of us, in
Is
our
that
own
gender
unique spark.
like right here, right now?
Yeah.
Would it be fair to ask you whether that Jen would actually ever disappear in the future, and whether you would actually? I don't want to give you a yes and no answer so much as that. What it would be like if that Jen was always present from this moment forward?
As you asked that question, what occurred to me was that Jen's always there. It's just I don't consciously always notice. If I'm in a lower mood of consciousness, if I've got a lot of thinking going on, if my intellect is busy trying to do its thing and work stuff out, then I can get distracted and not notice.
Okay.
And that's our
Yeah.
time, I think.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding ding. Reflections on that one. It was interesting being the observer, because as you were talking, I got this like image of Russian dolls, you know, how like these kind of, but almost how like, as Noki, as you were asking like which Jen is behind the Jen is behind the Jen, it was almost like taking them off and getting to the true, you know, inside somehow. And then as you were talking, Jen, about sometimes you don't see that Jen and the thinking goes on top. I was imagining all these Russian dolls stacking back on again as more and more thinking, and actually, I suppose thinking of that through more, the more Russian dolls are there, the heavier that might feel as well. Whereas the less of them, the lighter it feels. Like that's what came up for me. How was it for you?
I love that description of the Russian dolls. That's a really good image to go with that, because yeah, that is how it can feel as well. It's one of those things that it strikes me that how our design is so simple, and yet how we can try and overcomplicate it. And just like I suspect most people do, have a lot of thinking about our identity with all the different roles that we take on in life, how we can often ignore the me, the you that's at the core of us all, and not notice that.
Dennis, would you like to reflect there?
Thank you. While all of you were chatting, a kind of an image came to my mind when I was in my early 20s. I was working on my theater, speech, and communication degree, and a lot of times my focus was really in designing and building the sets. And I had the occasion where the head tech was not going to be in town for the summer, so they needed someone to build the children's show. And I said, I can do that. But unbeknownst to me, I would be the only one building. And so that meant for some very late nights building the show, and I had been up all day and was working well into the morning. When probably around 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm on the stage building the set by myself, and all of a sudden I hear from somewhere in the theater, I hear, "Dennis." And I paused and I listened and I looked around and I'm like, we have security here, and it would be very hard for people to get up into the little bits and places without my knowing they're there. So that must be me talking to myself. That must be me trying to let myself know something. And so if that me is my other you, it's a very valuable part of my thinking, because that me was saying, "Mate, it's time to pack up and go home and sleep." And I think we just need to be aware and just kind of gentle with our other yous, and understand that we don't let them control us, but they certainly can be used to inform us. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing that. I think we've all had experiences in the past where our inner self, our inner wisdom, our knowing has given us a nudge in some shape, form, or description that we just followed. So I loved hearing about your context there, about being in the theatre. And I'm conscious that we're at the end of the time of our call today. But thank you all for watching and taking part. And we will be doing some more in the next coming weeks. If, as Graham said at the beginning, if you check out on our YouTube channel, there will be the links in there. I think it's possible that the tech may be changing a bit. So if anyone wants to join us live, if you either message myself or Graham following the links on the YouTube channel, we'll make sure that you get the correct links to make sure you're in the right place at the right time. But other than that, I'd like to thank everyone for participating and hope to see you on the next call. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.